So in addition to the custom taxonomy template, we could also have taxonomy hyphen the name of it. So in our case, taxonomy hyphen skills.php, and even taxonomy hyphen skills hyphen php.php or hyphen html.php, whatever the specific term is of the taxonomy that we're referencing. And my guess actually is that unless you have tons of taxonomies where you need a custom fallback that's different than archive.php for your categories and tags, I'm guessing that you may be able to omit the taxonomy.php. And if you only have a few custom taxonomies, you can define them directly using the method that we're going to show you here. So this is where we'll leave our taxonomy pretty generic and actually not completely the way we want for our specific skills taxonomy, but we'll use these template hierarchy options here to customize the specific skills taxonomy a little bit differently for just its purpose. And that should make sense why we're doing this as we go on and once we see the final product. Okay, so in the backend in our code, even though we have our taxonomy.php and we could copy this over to be our skills taxonomy, which we are associating specifically with our portfolio, I think it makes more sense actually to start with our archive portfolio.php and save this to be taxonomy hyphen skills, because we want our listing page for skills or our archive page to actually look like how we display our portfolio listing. So it'll say, hey, we've got the following ones with skills, and you could, or with these skills associated with it, and you could click in to see those. So let's change this to taxonomy skills and go ahead and check it out on the front end. So now if we refresh it, we could see that it is styling it a little bit differently. It's not exactly how we wanted it in terms of looking like our portfolio, and there's a few reasons for that. First is we have some CSS making this narrow, so we would have to go in and remove that. So in my CSS, I have a tax-skills content that I was using before to make the page skinnier. And what I could do is simply remove that, which should help there. And now we've got full width, but we don't have the styling of them that we do on our portfolio page. So let's see how we're doing that. If we come in, we could see that we've got an article. So anywhere there's a post type archive of article.portfolio, then it's doing that left. So if we were to remove that specification and just have article portfolio floating, that should help us out. So let's come in and check out our CSS for that. So we could come into our CSS and search for post type archive portfolio. And in all the instances where we have this, we could actually just change it to be article portfolio. Now, this isn't really that important except to, and I'm not too concerned about you changing, and if you download the final files, you'll have the correct styling. This is more to point out that as you go, some stuff that may have worked CSS-wise, as you make your templates more complex, you may need to change, you may need to simplify, make it more extensive, more expansive, but let's just see if this worked. And of course, when you're working with your own CSS, it'll make more sense exactly where you need to jump in and you have a record of what you've done, but I haven't been focusing as much on the styles behind a lot of this. A lot of it just works for you so that you could focus on the template hierarchy, but sometimes you will need to make those modifications. So if we come now and we look at our skill for theme, we could see, oh, this is really cool. It's loading the right one and it looks just like it. And if we click in, we could see that we definitely have a problem. So I'm guessing that this is some CSS related, and basically it's seeing that this has an article portfolio and it is applying those margins and floats, which isn't good. But if we come back to our portfolio listing page, it has a similar class called archive as the actual taxonomy page here. So if we open this up, thanks to our body class, it also has archive. So we can make one last edit in our CSS. And basically, instead of having just article portfolio like this, we are going to add archive article portfolio, replace that, and then that should float those things in those instances. So our skills page looks good. If we come to our portfolio page, it looks good. And if we come into a single portfolio piece, that looks good as well. Okay, so that is great. We'll just close off here showing you one last thing, which is that you could customize this to work specifically with a certain taxonomy term. So our taxonomy is called skills, and these are our terms, like our categories or tags, they're terms. So let's say we wanted to do something special for our PHP one, we could do that. All we would have to do is come into taxonomy skills and save that as skills hyphen, which one were we doing? HTML, CSS, PHP, we could do for PHP. And we'll just do something really simple. We'll just change this to be our splash. And then change the name so that we know where we are. Okay, so now if we come into our skills for PHP, notice that it changes this. We could do more with it. I'm not taking it any further at this point, but once we come into a specific one, that one doesn't have any. Let's go ahead, come into one. I'm sorry, it has it. It's using a different template because we customized that. And so, okay, so it's looking good. When we click on the PHP one, it's slightly different. And we have now looked at all the possibilities for working with custom taxonomies. Okay, so now is when we really want to pause and consider what we do from here. Of course, you want to code out everything that we've done, building a default fallback taxonomy.php template, a taxonomy, hyphen taxonomy, like hyphen skill, like we did for a specific taxonomy, and then even down to the term level. And this gives you a ton of flexibility in working with custom taxonomies. Again, if categories and tags aren't exactly what you need, or you need more of them or a better range of them, or you want to assign them to custom content, this is really where taxonomies come in WordPress. And we're using the same kind of archive architecture to control these. So follow along with this, but then in your own projects, think about what makes sense. Now, custom taxonomies do not apply to every project, so I wouldn't strain yourself to use them, except to say that at some point you're going to have to code them out, and because they're a little bit less common, I'd suggest with your own project, maybe force it a little bit. Think of a custom taxonomy you could use in a place where maybe you hadn't thought of it before, just so you get this extra practice working with these, because again, not used super common, but they are really important to know. And at some point you're going to come across them and need to know how to work with them. So go ahead and code all that out on your own, practice following along with this, figure out what works in your project, a creative way to implement them. And then we're really at the end of the template hierarchy. So I'm going to talk about a few things before wrapping up and just doing a big review of everything that we've learned so far.